The massive ship appeared without warning in Earth's orbit, its metallic surface gleaming under the sun's rays. Military bases worldwide went into high alert, and civilians stared at their screens in disbelief as news channels broadcast the first clear images of the vessel. It was 3 times the size of the largest aircraft carrier ever built, with strange markings that pulsed with blue light along its hull. Hours passed as world leaders gathered in emergency sessions. Then the message came. It was transmitted simultaneously to every electronic device on Earth, in perfect universal standard English. The aliens called themselves the Guardians, and they had come to welcome humanity into the Galactic Coalition. Commander James Stone watched the transmission from the Pentagon's command center, his weathered face showing no emotion as the alien representative spoke. The creature looked almost human, except for its silver skin and eyes that seemed too large for its face. It spoke of peace, prosperity, and the chance for humanity to join a vast community of spacefaring races. But Stone had spent 30 years in military intelligence. He knew when someone wasn't telling the whole truth. The terms the Guardians offered seemed generous at first glance: access to advanced medical technology, clean energy solutions, and faster-than-light travel. However, each offer came with restrictions. Humans would not be allowed to develop their own versions of these technologies. They would not be permitted to establish colonies beyond Mars. Their military forces would be limited to defensive capabilities only. "They're treating us like children," Stone muttered to himself as he reviewed the full document. The Guardians had classified Earth as a Class 3 pre-space species, which basically meant they saw humans as clever primitives who needed guidance and oversight. The world's governments debated for days while the Guardian ship waited patiently in orbit. Many welcomed the chance to solve Earth's biggest problems with alien technology. Others worried about losing independence. But in the end, the promise of advanced technology and membership in a galactic community proved too tempting to resist. Stone was present at the signing ceremony in New York. He stood at the back of the UN General Assembly, watching as world leaders lined up to place their signatures on the acceptance document. The Guardian representatives smiled their 2 perfect smiles and spoke about the bright future ahead. That night, as Stone drove home through the rain, he noticed something odd. His car's navigation system glitched for a second, showing strange symbols before returning to normal. At the same moment, his phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Anna Miller, one of the top scientists at the Pentagon's research division. "Need to meet. Found something in their transmission. Not good." Stone changed direction and headed to their secure meeting spot, an old diner on the outskirts of the city. He found Miller sitting in a corner booth, her usual neat appearance disheveled, her fingers tapping nervously on a tablet computer. Their message contained hidden data streams, she said without preamble as Stone sat down. "I almost missed it, but there were patterns in the background noise. They've been watching us for decades, Commander. And not just watching. They've been actively interfering with our development." Stone's jaw tightened. Interfering how? Subtle things. Technical failures at key research facilities. Unexplained accidents that destroyed promising prototypes. "They've been keeping us at this level on purpose." She pushed the tablet across the table, showing him the decoded data. "And that's not all. They're especially interested in our biology, our adaptability, our brain structure, our ability to survive in different environments. We're not just a primitive species to them, Commander. We're lab rats." Stone looked out the rain-streaked window at the city lights. Somewhere up there, the Guardian ship hung in orbit, its crew probably congratulating themselves on another successful integration. But they had made a crucial mistake. They had underestimated humanity's ability to see through deception, to find patterns, to adapt and overcome. "Keep digging," he told Miller. "But be careful. We need to find out everything they're hiding before we decide our next move." He stood up to leave, then paused. "And Dr. Miller, don't trust any of our normal communication channels. From now on, we're being watched." As Stone drove home through the rain, he couldn't help but smile slightly. The Guardians thought they had found another obedient species to add to their collection. Instead, they had just awakened a sleeping giant. They would learn, perhaps too late, that humans were anything but primitive. 3 months after the Guardians' arrival, Dr. Miller worked late in her underground lab, analyzing strange data patterns that kept appearing in Earth's satellite networks. The numbers didn't make sense. There were massive energy readings coming from remote locations around the globe, places where nothing should exist. She cross-referenced these locations with historical satellite imagery and found something disturbing. Each site showed signs of careful camouflage, hidden installations that had been there long before the Guardians officially arrived. But it was what she found in the biological data that made her hands shake. The Guardians weren't just monitoring Earth, they were harvesting it. Their hidden facilities were collecting and processing genetic material from every living thing on the planet. Plants, animals, and most worryingly, humans. They seemed particularly interested in human tissue samples, especially from soldiers, athletes, and people who had survived extreme conditions. Miller sent an encrypted message to Commander Stone using their new secure channel, a series of old radio frequencies that the Guardians considered too primitive to monitor. Within an hour, Stone arrived at her lab, looking tired but alert. "Look at this," Miller said, pointing to her screen. "The Guardians claim they've only been studying Earth for a few years, but these facilities have been operating for at least 50 years. And here's the interesting part. They're terrified of us." Stone leaned closer to the screen. Terrified. They're centuries ahead of us technologically. Yes, but look at these medical reports they've been sending back to their homeworld. Miller pulled up another file. Humans can survive in environments that would kill most alien species. We heal faster, adapt quicker, and our brains process information in ways they've never seen before. We're not primitive. We're different. And different scares them. Stone walked to the window of the underground lab, looking at the rows of equipment. Some of it was new, gifts from the Guardians. But his team had already found ways to modify the alien tech, improving it in ways the Guardians claimed were impossible. "That's why they're restricting our development," he said slowly. "They're not protecting us. They're protecting themselves." A warning light flashed on Miller's computer. "We've got movement. 3 Guardian ships just entered orbit, bigger than anything they've shown us before." Stone checked his phone. Similar reports were coming in from military bases worldwide. The Guardians were increasing their presence, but trying to hide it. They didn't want Earth to know how many ships they were bringing in. "Dr. Miller," Stone said, his voice firm, "how close are you to understanding their technology?" She smiled for the first time that day. "Closer than they think. Their tech is advanced, but it's rigid. They don't innovate. They just follow the same patterns they've used for thousands of years. We've already improved some of their basic designs. Give me a few more months with a bigger team, and we might be able to match them." Stone nodded. "You'll have your team. I'm bringing in our best people, but we'll hide them in plain sight. Let the Guardians think we're just playing with their toys while we figure out how everything really works." Just then, Miller's computer beeped again. "Commander, look at this. I just decoded another transmission. The Guardians, they're not just afraid of us. They're afraid of what we might become. There's something in their genetic data about human potential, about dormant abilities we haven't even discovered yet." Stone looked at the data, his military mind already forming plans. The Guardians had made a serious mistake. They thought their technological advantage made them superior, but they had never faced a species like humanity before. They didn't understand that trying to cage humans only made them more determined to break free. "Keep working," he told Miller, "but spread the word quietly. It's time humanity learned what we're really capable of." He turned to leave, then added, "And Doctor, when you figure out their technology, make sure we do it better than they ever could." As Stone left the lab, emergency alerts kept lighting up his phone. The Guardians were moving more ships into position, thinking they were tightening their control over Earth. Instead, they were about to learn why humanity had survived every challenge it had ever faced. And this time, the challenge was going to wish it had never found Earth. Dr. Miller's lab had grown. What started as a small research room now filled an entire underground level, hidden beneath an old storage facility. Teams of scientists worked around the clock, studying and improving Guardian technology. But today was different. Today, they had made a breakthrough. "Watch this," Miller said to Commander Stone, holding up what looked like a simple computer chip. It was a copy of Guardian technology, but with one major difference: it was faster, more efficient, and completely human-made. Stone picked up the chip carefully. "How did you do it?" "We found out why their technology seems so advanced but inflexible," Miller explained, bringing up a display screen. "The Guardians process information in a straight line, one thing after another, perfect and predictable. But human brains," she smiled. "We think in patterns, make random connections. We see possibilities they can't even imagine." The screen showed two processing patterns. The Guardians was neat and ordered. The human version looked chaotic, but solved problems 3 times faster. "We're not just copying their technology anymore," Miller continued. "We're making it better. The teams have already started upgrading our defense systems, and there's something else you need to see." She led Stone to another section of the lab where a small spacecraft sat in a testing chamber. It looked similar to a Guardian shuttle, but the design was clearly different. "We built this using their basic principles, but with our improvements. It's twice as fast as their vessels, uses half the energy, and has something they never thought of. It can adapt its shields to different types of attacks." Stone walked around the craft, noting the smooth lines and hidden weapon ports. "How long until we can make more?" "Production is already starting in underground facilities worldwide. We're using the Guardian's own scanning blind spots to hide them. They're so focused on their standard detection methods that they never thought to look for human innovation." Alarms suddenly blared through the facility. One of their monitoring stations had picked up increased activity in orbit. The Guardians were moving their ships into new positions, establishing a tighter control grid around Earth. "They suspect something," Stone said, checking the tactical display. "But they don't know what. Their scans show everything normal, exactly what they expect to see." Miller typed rapidly on her console. "That's because we've learned how their scanning technology works. We're feeding them the data they want to see. But look at this." She brought up another screen showing Earth's real activity. Hidden shipyards, cloaked research stations, and new defense installations that the Guardians couldn't detect. "How many ships can we build?" Stone asked. "With our current facilities, 50 within the month. They're smaller than Guardian vessels, but faster and more maneuverable. And our pilots." She paused, pulling up combat simulation data. "The Guardians fly in perfect formation, following strict protocols. Our pilots think creatively, adapt to situations. In simulations, one human ship can outmaneuver 3 of theirs." Stone watched as more Guardian ships moved into position above Earth. They thought they were strengthening their hold over a primitive species. Instead, they were about to face something they had never encountered: human ingenuity combined with advanced technology. "Keep production running at full speed," Stone ordered. "But make sure our people understand. No tests where they might detect us. Not yet. We only get one chance to surprise them." As if to emphasize his point, a Guardian patrol ship passed overhead, its sensors sweeping the area but finding nothing unusual. Just another primitive human facility, exactly what they expected to see. Miller looked at the ship through the hidden cameras. "They think they're so far ahead of us," she said quietly. "They don't realize that every restriction they put on us just forces us to think of new solutions. Every time they try to hold us back, we get stronger." Stone nodded, watching the patrol ship disappear into the distance. The Guardians had made a fundamental mistake. They had given humanity access to advanced technology, while underestimating human ability to improve it. Soon, they would learn that putting limits on human potential was like trying to stop a river with paper. The water always finds a way through. The command center was silent except for the soft beeping of computers. Commander Stone stood at the main display, watching as hundreds of small dots moved into position around the Earth. Each dot represented a human ship, hidden from Guardian sensors by technology that humanity had not only copied but improved. "All ships report ready," his operations officer said quietly. "Guardian patrols are continuing their normal routes. They suspect nothing." Stone looked at the clock. 6 months of preparation had led to this moment. 6 months of secret building, training, and planning. The Guardians had grown comfortable in their superiority, never imagining that the primitive humans could challenge them. "Send the signal," Stone ordered. "Operation Breaking Chain begins now." Across the globe, human ships emerged from their hiding places. They appeared suddenly, as if coming out of nowhere, their improved cloaking technology making them invisible until the last possible moment. The Guardian monitoring stations, spread in a network around Earth's orbit, never had a chance to raise their shields. The first station exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Before the Guardians could react, 3 more stations disappeared from their screens. Their perfectly ordered defense network was falling apart faster than their protocols could handle. "Guardian ships are responding," the tactical officer reported, "but they're following standard attack patterns, just like our simulations predicted." Stone watched as the Guardian vessels formed their traditional battle lines, moving with perfect precision. But human ships didn't fight in straight lines. They moved in unpredictable patterns, attacking from multiple angles, using maneuvers that the Guardians considered impossible. A large Guardian battleship appeared from behind the moon, its weapons charging. It was twice the size of the largest human vessel, but size wasn't everything. 3 small human ships darted around it, their enhanced shields absorbing its attacks while they fired at weak points that Dr. Miller's team had discovered. "The Guardians are trying to send a distress signal to their homeworld," the communications officer announced. "But our jamming technology is working. They can't break through." Stone allowed himself a small smile. The Guardians had never considered that humans would find a way to block their communications. They had assumed their technology was too advanced for humans to understand, let alone improve upon. The battle continued for hours, but it wasn't really a battle. It was a complete change in the balance of power. Guardian ships, despite their size and advanced weapons, couldn't handle the unpredictable tactics of human pilots. Their rigid battle formations fell apart against enemies who refused to fight according to the rules. "Guardian command ship is requesting to communicate," the officer reported. "There," he paused, surprised. "They're offering to surrender." The command center fell silent. No one had expected the Guardians to surrender so quickly. Their pride in their technological superiority should have made them fight to the end. But they had never faced an enemy who could think so far outside their carefully ordered box. "Accept their communication," Stone ordered. The main screen lit up with the face of the Guardian commander. The alien's usually perfect composure was gone, replaced by confusion and fear. "How?" the Guardian commander asked. "How did you hide this from us?" "Our sensors, our technology." "Your mistake," Stone replied calmly, "was thinking that technology alone makes a species advanced. You gave us basic tools and expected us to stay within the limits you set. Instead, we took those tools and made them better." The Guardian's large eyes blinked rapidly. "This is impossible. You are a Class 3 species. You cannot." "We just did," Stone interrupted. "Now, here are our terms. Every Guardian ship will withdraw from Earth's orbit. All monitoring stations will be turned over to human control. And you will acknowledge Earth as an independent power, not a primitive species to be controlled." As the Guardian commander listened to the terms, new reports kept coming in. More human ships were appearing, surrounding the remaining Guardian vessels. The aliens who had come to guide and control humanity were now trapped by the very species they had underestimated. The age of Guardian control over Earth was over. And across the galaxy, the news began to spread. Humanity had done the impossible. They had beaten the Guardians at their own game, and they had done it better. News of Earth's victory spread through the galaxy like a wildfire. On thousands of worlds, alien species watched recordings of the battle, studying how a primitive race had defeated the mighty Guardians. What they saw frightened them more than anything had in centuries. In a busy trading station near the galactic core, various alien merchants and diplomats gathered around display screens, watching human ships perform maneuvers that defied standard combat logic. The humans didn't fight like any known species. They took risks that seemed insane, used tactics that broke every rule of space warfare. "Look at that," a tall blue-skinned trader said, pointing at a recording of a small human ship diving between two Guardian vessels, causing them to fire on each other. No sane pilot would attempt such a move. The chances of survival are too low. But the humans survived, another alien responded. They all survived. They fight like they don't know what's impossible. On Earth, Commander Stone received reports from deep space monitoring stations that Dr. Miller had set up. The galaxy was buzzing with stories about humanity. Some called them savages, others called them geniuses, but they all agreed on one thing: humans were dangerous. "They're studying our battle tactics," Miller told Stone as they watched alien communications. "Every species in the galaxy is trying to figure out how we think, how we fight. But they can't understand us because they're looking for patterns that don't exist." She brought up a display showing various alien combat strategies. Each species had its own style, but they all followed strict rules and formations. Then she showed recordings of human ships in battle. The movements looked random, chaotic, but somehow they worked perfectly. "The aliens can't copy our tactics," she explained. "Their minds don't work like ours. They need everything to make logical sense. But humans," she smiled, "we make intuitive leaps. We try things just to see if they'll work. It terrifies them." Reports came in from Earth's new deep space outposts. Alien warships were changing their routes to avoid human-controlled space. Trading vessels requested human escorts for protection. Species that had once looked down on Earth now sent ambassadors asking for alliances. "Look at this," Stone said, showing Miller a message from a distant world. "They're calling it human warfare now. It's becoming a term for unpredictable, innovative combat tactics. Some military academies are trying to teach it, but their students can't grasp the concept of controlled chaos." A warning light flashed on the command center's main screen. A group of alien ships had entered the solar system. But instead of attacking, they sent a message requesting permission to approach Earth. They were diplomats from various worlds, coming to learn more about humanity. "They fear us," Miller observed as she read their credentials. "But they're also fascinated by us. We do things their science says are impossible. We take their technology and improve it in ways they never imagined. We're like a puzzle they can't solve." Stone watched as the alien ships carefully followed Earth's approach guidelines, being extra cautious not to make any moves that might seem threatening. The mighty species of the galaxy, with their ancient civilizations and advanced technology, were treating Earth like a sleeping giant that could wake up and change everything at any moment. "Maybe fear isn't so bad," Stone said quietly. "Fear means respect. Fear means they'll think twice before trying to control us again." The alien diplomats landed in a special facility built just for off-world visitors. As they walked through the halls, they passed windows showing humans training, working, and innovating. Each alien had the same look in their eyes, a mixture of curiosity and dread. They had come to study humanity, to try to understand the species that had changed the galaxy's power balance in a single battle. But understanding humans wasn't as simple as studying their technology or tactics. The real secret of human power was something no alien could copy: the ability to look at the impossible and say, "Why not?" The alien stood before Commander Stone, its forearms trembling with a mixture of fear and hope. It belonged to a species called the miners, forced by the Guardians to dig rare metals from toxic planets without proper protection. Thousands had died, but the Guardians didn't care. "We heard what you did," the alien said, its translator converting its clicks into English. "How you broke free from Guardian control. We want to learn. We want to fight back too." Stone looked at the data pad the alien had brought. It showed dozens of mining worlds, all filled with species working as slaves under Guardian supervision. The Guardians called it guided industrial development, but Stone knew slavery when he saw it. "Tell me more about your people," Stone said, his voice gentle despite his growing anger at the Guardians' actions. More aliens came after that first one, species from all over the galaxy, each with similar stories. The Guardians had classified them all as primitive, restricting their development, using them for labor or resources. None had dared to rebel until they saw what humanity had done. In her lab, Dr. Miller worked with alien scientists, teaching them how to think beyond the Guardians' rigid rules. "Your people built these mining machines?" she asked one of the miners, studying their equipment, "even with Guardian restrictions?" The alien nodded. "We had to fix them ourselves. The Guardians wouldn't give us new ones when they broke." Miller smiled. "You're already thinking like humans. You found ways around their rules. Now let's make those machines better." Within months, Earth became a school for revolution. Alien species learned human warfare tactics, studied how to modify technology, and most importantly, learned to think freely. Some picked it up quickly, their natural abilities combining with human innovation to create new possibilities. "Attack here, and here," Stone told a group of alien rebels, pointing at a map of Guardian supply lines. "Don't fight like they expect. Use the terrain. Use their own rules against them. When they move right, you go left. When they look up, you go under." The first rebellion started on a mining world far from Earth. The miners used modified equipment to jam Guardian communications, just as humans had done. Their machines, improved with human innovations, broke through Guardian defenses. When Guardian ships arrived in perfect formation, they found chaos waiting for them. The news reached Earth via the Deep Space Network. "The miners have taken control of their main production world," an operator reported. Guardian forces attempted standard suppression protocols, but he grinned. The miners didn't follow the rules. More rebellions followed. Species that the Guardians had controlled for centuries began fighting back, using tactics learned from humans. The rigid structure of the Galactic Coalition started cracking as more worlds declared independence. "The coalition is splitting," Miller told Stone as they watched reports flood in. "Some species are staying with the Guardians, but more are joining what they're calling the Free Alliance." Stone watched the tactical display as more and more worlds lit up with rebellion. The Guardians responded with massive military force, but they couldn't adapt to enemies who fought unpredictably. Every victory they had relied on their targets following known patterns. Now those patterns were broken. "We need to support them," Stone said. "Send out the call. Any world that wants freedom gets human advisors, human technology, and human protection." Earth's ships moved through space, carrying teachers and technology to worlds that had never known true freedom. Some alien species feared this human interference, seeing it as another form of control. But they soon learned the difference. The humans didn't give orders. They taught independence. The Guardians built their power on making everyone follow their rules. Stone told his staff as reports of more rebellions came in. "We're breaking their power by teaching others to make their own rules." The galaxy was changing. The neat, ordered system the Guardians had maintained for thousands of years was falling apart. In its place, something new was growing. A galaxy where species were free to develop in their own way, to innovate, to think differently. And at the heart of this change was humanity, teaching others that the only unbreakable rule was that rules were meant to be broken. The Guardian High Council met in their grand chamber, surrounded by displays showing the spreading chaos across their once-ordered galaxy. The human plague, as they now called it, had infected too many species with dangerous ideas about freedom and innovation. "We must contain this," The head guardian said, his silver skin dulled with stress. Quarantine the human sector. Cut off all travel and communication. Stop this madness before it spreads further. They sent their biggest fleet yet, 10,000 ships forming a perfect blockade around human-controlled space. The Guardians believed that their superior numbers and advanced technology would finally show humanity its proper place in the galactic order. Commander Stone stood on the bridge of Earth's new flagship, watching the Guardian blockade through the main viewport. The enemy ships hung in space like a wall of metal, their formation so perfect it looked like a computer image. "They still don't understand," he said to Dr. Miller, who had come to the bridge to monitor the performance of their new ship systems. "They think if they use enough ships in the right pattern, they can force us to follow their rules." Miller checked her readings. "Our new stealth system is working better than expected. Their sensors are only seeing what we want them to see. Should we show them the truth?" Stone nodded. "Signal all ships. Operation Ghost Fleet begins now." Across the blockade line, Guardian commanders watched their sensor readings with satisfaction. They could detect a few hundred human ships gathering, exactly what they had expected. Their battle computers calculated a 99.9% chance of victory. Then their sensors went crazy. Human ships appeared everywhere, dropping their stealth fields all at once. Not hundreds of ships, thousands, and they weren't following any known formation. They moved in patterns that seemed random but somehow worked together perfectly. "Impossible," a Guardian commander shouted as human vessels appeared behind his ship. "They can't have gotten past our lines." But they had. While the Guardians watched their sensors and trusted their computers, human ships had slipped through gaps that Guardian doctrine said were too small to matter. They had used tricks that Guardian training said would never work. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. Guardian ships, despite their superior numbers, couldn't adapt to human tactics. When they formed defensive spheres, humans attacked from angles their training never covered. When they tried to trap human ships between their lines, the humans turned their own crossfire against them. "Their entire command structure is falling apart," Miller reported, watching the tactical display. "They can't handle situations that aren't in their battle manuals." She was right. The Guardian fleet, which had never lost a major battle in 10,000 years, was being torn apart by an enemy that refused to fight properly. Their perfect formations became traps. Their standardized tactics became weaknesses. A Guardian commander, watching his fleet fall into chaos, sent a desperate message to his superiors. "They're not fighting. This isn't warfare. It's madness. Every time we adapt to one strategy, they change to something completely different." Stone received the message intercepts with grim satisfaction. "Send word to all ships," he ordered. "Push forward. Show them what happens when they try to cage humanity." The Guardian blockade collapsed within hours. Their mighty fleet retreated in disorder, leaving behind destroyed ships and broken pride. The species they had dismissed as primitive had not only beaten them, but had done it by breaking every rule of space combat they held sacred. Back in the Guardian High Council chamber, the leaders watched recordings of the battle in stunned silence. Their perfect tactics, developed over millennia, had been defeated by what looked like chaos, but was actually a deeper form of strategy than they could understand. "We cannot beat them," the head Guardian finally admitted. "Not like this. Every time we try to contain them, they grow stronger. Every rule we create, they break and turn against us. They're not just a plague. They're a force of nature." In Earth's flagship, Stone looked at the retreating Guardian ships. Humanity had proven again that it couldn't be contained, couldn't be controlled, couldn't be forced to follow anyone else's rules. The galaxy was learning a lesson that the Guardians had learned too late. Trying to stop human advancement was like trying to stop time itself. It was simply impossible. 2 years after the great battle against the Guardian blockade, the mere sight of a human ship was enough to make alien vessels change course. Stories spread across the galaxy, growing with each telling. Humans could appear out of nowhere. They could think impossible thoughts. They could turn any technology into a weapon. On a busy trade station near the Galactic core, a merchant captain was telling his crew about his encounter with a human patrol. They came from the dark space between stars, he said, his tentacles waving for emphasis. Their ships moved like they didn't care about physics. When I tried to run, they were somehow ahead of me, behind me, beside me, all at once. The truth was simpler. The human patrol had just used basic maneuvers, but to a galaxy used to rigid flight patterns, even simple human tactics seemed like magic. Commander Stone read reports like this with mixed feelings. Fear kept the peace, but it wasn't the kind of peace humanity had wanted. We're becoming the monsters of the galaxy, he told Dr. Miller during one of their strategy meetings. Miller pulled up a holographic display showing trade routes and diplomatic connections. Look closer, she said. Yes, some fear us, but others are learning from us. The species we helped free from the Guardians don't spread scary stories. They tell tales of hope. She was right. While some worlds increased their defenses against human unpredictability, others sent their youth to Earth to study. They wanted to learn not just human technology, but human ways of thinking. A small fleet of Guardian ships appeared at the edge of human space. Stone prepared for battle, but the ships sent a different message. They wanted to talk. Their crews had seen enough combat with humans to know that traditional warfare was useless. Your species changes everything, the Guardian commander said during the meeting. His perfect uniform and rigid posture couldn't hide his unease. You take our oldest, most reliable tactics and make them worthless. Your very existence makes others question everything we taught them. Stone looked at the alien leader. Maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needed. Maybe questioning everything is how we all grow stronger. The Guardian's large eyes blinked rapidly. But the chaos, the disorder, is how nature works, Miller finished for him. You tried to make the galaxy follow perfect patterns, but life isn't perfect. It's messy. It adapts. It changes. That's what makes it beautiful. Reports kept coming in from across space. A group of formerly peaceful aliens had driven off pirates using unpredictable human-style tactics. A species the Guardians had classified as too primitive for spaceflight had built their own ships using human engineering principles. The very thing that made humans frightening, their ability to think differently, was spreading. Not as a plague, as the Guardians had feared, but as a gift. Species that had been stuck in development for thousands of years were suddenly solving problems in new ways. Send a message to all human ships, Stone ordered one day. Starting today, we don't just patrol space. We teach. Any species that wants to learn, we help them. Not by giving them our answers, but by showing them how to find their own. Miller added her own message to the order. And remind our people, we're not here to be the new Guardians. We're here to show the galaxy that there's more than one way to solve a problem. Gradually, the fear began to change. Yes, alien ships still moved aside when human vessels appeared. But now they also waved, sent greetings, asked questions. The stories changed too. Humans were still the unpredictable ones, the chaos bringers, but they were also becoming known as teachers, helpers, protectors of the weak. The galaxy was learning that fear could come in different forms. There was the fear of the unknown, of the different, of the unpredictable. But there was also the fear of staying the same, of never changing, of being trapped in old patterns. Humanity had taught the galaxy to fear stagnation more than chaos. And in that fear, in that wonderful uncertainty, new possibilities were born. 5 years after humanity broke free from Guardian control, the galaxy looked very different. The Great Hall of the Free Species Alliance, built on Earth, was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Some had once been Guardian slaves, others had been labeled as primitive, but all now stood as equals. Commander Stone, his uniform bearing the new symbols of Earth's Space Force, addressed the gathered aliens. Behind him, Dr. Miller operated a display showing the changed map of known space. The rigid borders of the old Guardian-controlled regions had been replaced by a complex network of free trade routes and independent worlds. "Look how far we've come," Stone said to the assembly. "Not just humans, but all of us. We've proven that being different isn't a weakness. It's our greatest strength." The Guardian representative, no longer wearing the silver armor of authority, stood to speak. "We were wrong," he admitted, his voice carrying through the translator to all present. "For thousands of years, we thought we were protecting the galaxy by keeping everyone in their proper place. We didn't understand that growth comes from change, from challenge, from thinking differently." News arrived daily of new achievements across the galaxy. Species that had never worked together were combining their unique abilities with human innovation. Problems that had existed for centuries were being solved in new ways. The galaxy was alive with possibility. "A ship just returned from deep space," Miller told Stone after the assembly. "They found worlds we never knew existed, species the Guardians had hidden away. And you know what those species asked when they met our people? They asked us to teach them how to think for themselves." Stone walked to the great window overlooking Earth's shipyards. Vessels of all shapes and sizes filled the space, each design unique to its builders. There were no more standard patterns, no more rigid rules about how ships should look or work. "We're not just teachers anymore," he said. "We're students too. Every species has something to show us, some new way of looking at the universe. That's what the Guardians never understood. True strength comes from learning from each other." A small alien child, from a species that had once been mining slaves, approached Stone. In its hands, it held a device that combined Guardian technology with human innovation and its own species' natural abilities. "Look what I made," it said proudly. "I didn't follow the manual. I thought like a human." Stone knelt down to examine the device. "You didn't think like a human," he corrected gently. "You thought like yourself. That's even better." The Free Species Alliance grew stronger each day, not through force or control, but through cooperation and innovation. Yes, humans were still feared, but it was the kind of fear that came with deep respect. The fear of facing someone who would always find a new solution, always think of a different approach, always refuse to accept impossible as an answer. "The Guardians were right about one thing," Miller said as she worked with a team of alien scientists. "We are dangerous, not because we're violent or aggressive, but because we show others how to break free from their limits. And that's the most dangerous idea of all, the idea that you can be more than what others say you are." In deep space, human ships still patrolled, but now they were rarely alone. Vessels from dozens of species flew with them, each bringing their own unique approaches to space travel and exploration. When they encountered new civilizations, they didn't offer control or restrictions. They offered choices. "Remember when they called human thinking a plague?" Stone asked Miller as they watched a mixed fleet depart Earth. "Now they call it liberation." The galaxy had learned its lesson. The fear of humanity had transformed into something more complex, a fear of becoming stagnant, of stopping growth, of accepting limitations. Humans had shown the galaxy that fear could be a tool for positive change, pushing everyone to exceed their own expectations. And so the species that had once been dismissed as primitive became known as the race that taught the galaxy how to dream again. The fear remained, but it had become a gift, the gift of unlimited possibility.